In the 13th century BC, the armies of Hellas plundered Troy and reduced the mythical ancient city on the Aegean Sea to ashes. The Hellenists killed the Trojan warriors and enslaved their women and children. A small group of Trojans, led by Aeneas, the nephew of the king, managed to escape by sea. Later, Romulus and Remus, who were descendants of Aeneas, would found the Eternal City, Rome. But during the escape from Troy, one galley strayed from the group and sailed northward. The ship crossed the Dardanelles, Hellespont, the Sea of Marmara, and the Bosphorus Strait and reached the Black Sea. When they berthed, here's what the Trojans found. The people who hewed the golden mask of Agamemnon met the first civilization to work gold in history. The first civilization in Europe, actually. From the time of Aeneas till today, every major city has had its keepers of knowledge, members of the Order of Wisdom, people who know all about the history and spirit of the city in which they live. We walk past them in the streets, but we don't recognize them. The Order has its representative in Varna as well, Evgeny Stanchev. He knows. Varna is the third largest city in Bulgaria. It is situated on the western coast of the Black Sea. People from various ethnicities live here together: Bulgarians, Turks, Greeks, Armenians, Romani. The historical center of the city is called Grutska Mahala, the Greek neighborhood. The Varna International Airport provides easy access to the whole world. The Varna port is one of the largest on the Black Sea. The city has a rich history of over 2,600 years. And in the summer, its population doubles. Varna and the nearby resorts are a favorite tourist destination for Bulgarians and foreigners alike. Tourists from Russia, Germany, Great Britain, the Nordic countries, and Central Europe come to the sea capital of Bulgaria.
The gate to every coastal city is the harbor. I welcome those who have come here to seek enlightenment in the wisdom of the ancient city. There they are, Angela and Michael.
The etymology of the name Varna is not easily traceable. Some say it is a Thracian word. Others claim it comes from the word var, meaning lime, as in limestone, a sedimentary rock, which is very typical for the geological composition of the region. Still others believe that Varna means a city by the water. In the past, Varna was also called Odessos, Tiberiopolis, Theodoriada, Irinopolis, and even Stalin. Angela's from Nigeria, where she graduated from the Navy Secondary School. Mike is from the UK, where he was a member of the legendary Brighton-based ska band Skippy the Fridge. But that's how it is by the sea. It brings all kinds of people together. Tomorrow, Angela and Mike will meet 3 of Evgeny's friends in front of the cathedral in the city center. These are the keepers of knowledge who will show them the different faces of Varna.
I'm the historian. I preserve and spread the memory of Varna's past.
I'm the righteous one. I carry the light of Christianity, the faith of this ancient city.
I'm the modern man. I know all about the urban life here. Every museum, theater, gallery, sports, and cultural center.
I will be your first guide around Varna. This is the Archaeological Museum. Here is where our history tour starts. The building was designed in the neo-Renaissance style by the most famous Bulgarian architect Petko Momchilov and was built between 1892 and 1898.
It looks like a French lyceum.
Good call. Indeed, the building was originally constructed to house the girls' school, the most prestigious school in the area.
A graduate of the Charles University in Prague, Momčilov was one of the bright young hopes of European architecture at the end of the 19th century. He designed buildings in Hungary, Austria, and Russia, and the capital of Bulgaria, Sofia, also owes part of its charm to Momčilov. The Archaeological Museum houses several depositories, a library, a children's educational museum, and has a display area of 2,150 square meters. The museum was founded by the Varna Archaeological Society on the initiative of the Czech brothers Karl Škorpil, later nicknamed the Bulgarian Schliemann, and Hermann Škorpil. The Škorpil brothers discovered the lost original Bulgarian capital, Pliska. The first archaeological exhibition was opened on June 11, 1906, in the building of the girls' school, which later became the Archaeological Museum. Naturally, the first head of the museum was Karel Škorpil, who held this post until his death in 1944. The museum houses the oldest worked gold in the world. The artifacts are over 6,000 years old. They were produced by artisans from a civilization which lived in the area between 4,400 and 4,100 BC. The historians call this civilization the Varna culture. It is believed to have been the first civilization on the European continent, or at least the oldest we know of. The golden artifacts in the Varna culture necropolis were discovered by accident during excavations near the port of Varna. A total of 294 graves from the Chalcolithic period of the Copper Age were found on an area of 7,500 square meters. Some of them proved to be of key importance to world archaeology and history. Excavation works on the necropolis went on for over 15 years. Some of the graves were extremely rich in gold artifacts. This is evidence that during this early stage of history, when humanity was only just beginning to master metallurgy, the Varna culture already had a developed hierarchical society and an emerging monarchy institution. The most copious burial site is known as Grave 43. 990 golden artifacts were found inside, weighing over 1.5 kilos. The body is that of a 1.7 meter tall man, a giant of the time. These golden hammers were actually used as scepters, as symbols of power. The man buried here was a king or a priest, probably both. There are two types of graves with gold artifacts in them, those with a skeleton inside, and symbolic graves, those that did not contain a skeleton. This is a clear indication that the ancient inhabitants of the Varna region had a very strict system of communicating with the afterlife, what we call religion today. This is a stater, a type of coin from the town of Kizik. It was minted from electrum, an extremely rare alloy of gold and silver that can be produced artificially, but also occurs sometimes naturally. About 18 to 20 kilometers west of Varna is a unique natural phenomenon, Pobiti Kameni, a vast area covered with curious rock formations. Scientists are still arguing about the origin of the rocks, whether they are petrified corals or eroded cliffs. The blocks are shaped like columns and seem like they are stuck into the sand, which give the phenomena its name. Pobiti Kameni means rocks driven into the ground. They vary in height. Some are as high as 5 meters. Their diameter also varies, between 30 centimeters and 3 meters. Most of the columns have a conical shape, with no solid foundations. Instead, they are hollow and filled with sand. Their silhouettes resemble various animals and objects, as some of the columns have their own names: the Stone Sentinels, the Camel, the Throne, and the Stone Forest.
It looks like Stonehenge.
Yes, but this was a natural phenomenon, right?
True, and the ancient people who lived here used Pobiti Kameni for the same purposes that Druids used Stonehenge.
To trace the movement of the sun, some researchers even dispute the theory that the formation's origin is natural and claim that the columns are man-made.
Right. As if you could actually make something like that.
These are the Roman thermae, the public bath complex. In ancient times, these baths were something like VIP clubs. Research shows that the buildings were over 20 meters high and the total area of the facility over 7,000 square meters.
That's larger than the White House. The floor area is only 5,100 square meters.
The Thermae are located in the southeast part of contemporary Varna, near the port. They are among some of the best preserved architectural sites from antiquity. These baths were constructed in the end of the 2nd century AD. This is the largest bath complex on the Balkan Peninsula and the 4th largest in Europe, following the baths of Carcalla and the baths of Diocletian in Rome, as well as the Imperial Thermae in the German city of Trier, Karl Marx's hometown. The baths were operational until the late 3rd century, when they were let to fall into neglect. It was impossible for the locals to maintain such an expensive facility. The bath's heating system is unique. By means of a double floating floor, the hot air was transported all around the buildings. The mineral springs that heated the Thermae are still used by the citizens of Varna. For the Roman citizens, it was a question of honor to visit the baths at least once a day. Such were also the doctor's recommendations. The building was so solid that 1,200 years after it was built, its basements were used as dungeons by the Turks. They called the prison Ich Kale. In the summer of 1444, an army of 40,000 crusaders, a huge military formation for the time, led by the Hungarian king Władysław III Jagiello and the Transylvanian voivode János Hunyadi, crossed the Danube and captured all fortresses in their way. On November 9, 1444, the Crusaders were outside Varna. They set up camp to wait for the ships from Genoa and Venice that the Pope had sent to take them to Constantinople. But the Ottoman Sultan, Murad II, bribed the owners of the ships, and with their help, the Ottoman army crossed the Bosphorus. The Crusaders had no room to escape and were forced to fight. The battle was going more than well for the young, only 20 years old king. The Turks were retreating. Then, elated by the imminent victory, Władysław decided to play the hero and personally kill the Sultan. But before he could deliver the final blow, one of Murad's janissaries, the fearful bodyguards of the Ottoman sultans, killed the king's horse, knocked Władysław down, and beheaded him.
The museum was built on the site of the battle, a memorial of the Crusaders who fell during the fights. King Władysław is known as Varnenchik in Bulgaria and in Poland as Władysław I of Varna.
Disheartened by the death of their king, the Crusaders started to retreat and the Turks surrounded them. Most of the knights were slain. Only a handful, led by János Hunyadi, managed to flee. King Władysław's death disheartened not only his troops, but the whole of Europe. The old continent would take its revenge 239 years later, in the Battle of Vienna, when another Polish king rose to defend the Christian faith, Jan Sobieski.
So, Vienna avenged Varna.
Władysław Warneńczyk's sarcophagus in the king's vault in the Wawel Castle near Krakow is empty. He was probably buried here.
The Evsinograd Palace is only a few kilometers away.
The Evsinograd Palace was erected at the end of the 19th century. In 1882, Prince Alexander of Battenberg received a gift from the Greek metropolis, the St. Demeter Monastery, and all its adjoining vineyards and lands. The prince expanded the mansion to its current area, 197 acres.
It was the palace of Bulgarian Tsars, the informal summer capital from which they ruled their realm.
The Bulgarian Versailles.
The palace and gardens were commissioned by Ferdinand I. The main building of the palace was designed by the Austrian architect Victor Rumpelmayer. It was modeled after the French Louis III chateau style. There are several reception halls, a music hall, a dining room, studies and offices, bedrooms for the royal family, and a whole floor for the staff. The furniture is made of mahogany and walnut wood, and the impressive chandelier, decorated with a royal crown and gold lilies, was a present from the House of Bourbon, who commissioned the Versailles Palace and were related to the Bulgarian kings. The palace is situated in a beautiful park, the arrangement of which began in 1890. King Ferdinand personally picked out over 200 different plant species from the Mediterranean, Asia, and South America.
Sinograd, just like any respectable chateau, has an excellent wine cellars. The winery make marvelous white wines and probably the best brandy in Europe, Evsiniak.
This sundial was a personal gift from Queen Victoria to Tsar Ferdinand, a token of appreciation for saving a group of English sailors in Varna Bay.
The young Bulgarian sailors helped save the maritime superpowers.
Yeah.
On November the 8th, 1912, during the First Balkan War, the Bulgarian torpedo boat Drosky attacked the pride of the Turkish fleet, the protected cruiser Hamidiye. Today, the renowned torpedo boat is one of the most valued exhibits in the Naval Museum in Varna.
Hamidiye was about 40 times as big as Drusky and heavily armed.
This torpedo boat against the protected cruiser? I went to a Navy school. This is truly amazing.
The people of Varna have always learned from history and nature. They used Pobitite Kameni as an observatory. They turned the sea into a commercial port. But Varna is not just history. Varna has a unique spirit, and you will feel it tomorrow.
Dormition of the Theotokos Cathedral is an excellent example of how deeply rooted Christianity is in Varna. After the proclamation of the Bulgarian independence in 1878, the notable citizens of Varna realized that their city, the second largest in the principality, did not have a church worthy of this prestigious position, and they decided to erect a new metropolitan cathedral. The initial design was made by a Russian architect and was a replica of an existing church in Peterhof, near St. Petersburg, the Venice of the North.
What does Dormition mean?
Dormition, or uspenie, is an old Bulgarian word. It means nodding off, and it refers to the state of grace that saints are in after their death. Contrary to canon, the icons are facing south instead of west.
The oldest church in Varna was also named after the Mother of Christ, Panagia Theotokos. It was built in 1602. The legend goes that an icon of the Virgin Mary was floating in the air among the branches of an elm tree. The people decided to take it down and bring it to Varna. They put it in the cart of a Turk who happened to be passing by, but the oxen that were pulling the cart refused to go. The same happened with the cart of a Greek. Finally, the icon was carried to Varna by a young Bulgarian man. They decided to build a church on the place where the cattle stopped the cart. The locals say that when the icon of the Virgin Mary was first brought here, it was hanged according to canon on the east wall facing west. In the morning, they found it hanging on the north wall, facing south. This happened every time they tried to put it on the east wall. Finally, the believers decided not to defy God's will and hanged all the icons on the north side of the church. They thought it was better to violate the canon than to argue with God. According to Carol and Herman Scorpio, it was here where King Władysław of Varna was buried. One of the most stunning monuments from early Christianity in Bulgaria is the cave complex Alija Monastery.
This, for example, is a monastery cell. The monks lived in rooms like this. The residents of this monastery were the genuine article, truly hast.
Did people really live here?
Christian mystics who practiced contemplative meditation. They repeated a short prayer or mantra. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, I'm a sinner. They would recite this for hours and hours on end, like Eastern Orthodox Buddhists. Om.
Its name comes from the Turkish word alija, which means pied or multicolored, probably because of the bright colors of the murals. We have very little information regarding the early history of the monastery. Historians believe that the first primitive cells for the monks were hewn and used as far back as the 4th century AD. The caves may have also been used by the poor or during barbaric invasions. It has been proven that the monastery was completed in the 12th century. The monks' cells, the common rooms, and the chapels are hewn directly into the karst cliff. They are located on 2 levels, which are connected by an external staircase dug into the limestone. The lower level housed the monks' cells, the kitchen and the dining room, and a small church. The upper level was dedicated entirely to the house of God, the chapel. Only a very small part of the original murals still remains today, mostly on the upper level. Less than a kilometer away, a similar cave complex was found, called Katakombite, the catacombs. It shares a similar history and architecture as Alija Monastery, but is even less well preserved. Before the construction of the Dormition of the Theotokos Church, one of the oldest churches in Varna served as the Metropolitan Cathedral, St. Athanasius. It was erected in 1838 on the spot of an ancient temple that has been burned down. Under the church's foundations, remains of 2 earlier chapels were found. It was here that in 1828, a Christian bell rang for the first time in 4 centuries in Varna. The bell was mounted by the Russians, who took possession of the city during the Russo-Turkish War of 1828 to 1829. During the Ottoman rule in Bulgaria, Christians were not allowed to ring their bells. Several Russian officers who lost their lives in the Russo-Turkish War were buried in the church. One of them is a prince, Knyaz Urosov. Because of that, after the October Bolshevik Revolution, when many white cards immigrated to Bulgaria, St. Athanasius was given to the Russian Church. Today, it is Bulgarian again.
How different is Christianity here from what I've seen in other parts of the world?
Yes, that's because Eastern Orthodox Christianity is the oldest branch of Christianity. Therefore, what you see today is the same as you would have seen 1,000 years ago.
Preserving the traditions of the past doesn't mean conservatism in general. Varna is a modern city with rich cultural life, just like any major city in the world.
In the world of Christianity, carnivals are held during the winter. But you know, there's just something about having a celebration during summertime. The heart of any major European city is the square in front of the theater. To create a nation, you must first create a theater. These words by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe were the motto that the notable citizens of Varna followed when 100 years ago they decided to build a temple to Melpomene in their city. And despite all hardship, against all odds, after Bulgaria lost 3 successive wars between 1912 and 1918, in 1921,